Hey, everybody, welcome to another Bourbon and Blockchain happy hour. Tonight, I have a special guest, Myron Paynes. Myron, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. It feels great to take 2 weeks off. Went back to spend some time with my parents. Didn't really look at the market much. Didn't look at the charts much. Just kind of relaxing. So that was good. But it's good to be back.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to step away from it, right? Especially when everything is in the red and it doesn't look like there's anything positive in sight. Sometimes it's just better to walk away, right?
Yeah, and a lot happened in the past 2 weeks actually with all these different liquidations.
Yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to talk about tonight. We wanted to do a quick show on what's kind of going on in the markets and things that have been happening behind the scenes if you haven't been able to keep up with it. And we'll kind of just go over that stuff. We typically start off by looking at the price of Bitcoin and where it's at and relative to the rest of the market. Everybody, whether or not you own Bitcoin or you like Bitcoin, it seems like everybody's watching Bitcoin right now. The entire market's just watching and seeing what they're doing, which I think is kind of funny. I don't know what your opinion on it is, but everybody has an opinion on Bitcoin, whether it's positive or negative. But when they need something to happen or they're looking for some positivity for the rest of the market, all eyes on Bitcoin. I think it's kind of funny.
The more actually, the more that the market sells off, the more the market bleeds. The more I like Bitcoin more than other ones.
Hmm.
There's a guy that I've been watching. I forgot the name on YouTube, but he makes a lot of good like macro level viewpoints. I think he called out like Luna before it crashed. He called out Celsius that it might have some trouble. This was like a week or two before Celsius had this liquidation thing. So he was calling a lot of good things out, just telling people to be careful. But the one thing he's super bullish on is Bitcoin. I think he made a video when Bitcoin dropped down to the 17,000s. The video is called "Bitcoin is fine, guys." So he's just basically he's not worried, and for him, his plan is basically hold it, like essentially forever for him. And I think he's still watching the market and everything. But for him, it's like he says there's Bitcoin, there's 19,000 like this unregulated stuff. So he
Yep.
lumps everything together that's not Bitcoin. So, but the thing is, this guy's super. I think he's super intelligent, very rational, and he has called out a lot of these projects that did take the fall. So the more basically I think you're a Bitcoin maxi for a long time, but the more I look into it, the more and more I become a Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah, I've been talking about that a lot with my wife, even, and saying that the more I stick around in crypto, the more I pay attention, the more I see how valuable Bitcoin is, and what it does for the rest of the market, and how it's just on its own. There's nobody behind it pulling levers. It doesn't promote. Nobody, people can promote Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't promote itself. It gets promotion through people that utilize it and people that are engaged with it. Bitcoin's not fighting to get regulated. People are fighting for Bitcoin to be regulated. I think that's crazy, right? So I think it's by far one of the best things in the crypto space, if not the best. But it's something for you to research on your own and see if it's something that you're into. But this is what happened over the past few, week and a half or about 2 weeks. We just saw a lot of red. It came down pretty hard. We had a huge red candle right here. We went from 22,500 range all the way down to the bottom of $20,000. And then a couple days later, we sold all the way down. And I think at one point it wicked down to $17,600 right there. So yeah, that was a pretty pretty big blow to Bitcoin, and it didn't stay there long. A lot of people came in and bought up that dip, and now we're ranging in this $20,000 range. Before we went on, we were talking about an individual named Gareth Soloway. If you guys ever want to look him up on Twitter and whatnot, Gareth Soloway, he's a really good charts analysis. He does chart analysis and all types of technicals, not just with crypto, but he also does it with the S&P 500 and all these other stocks. And he's saying that right now this is a temporary relief rally, and that we could see a relief rally go all the way up into potentially $30,000 from where we're at right now. But he sees that we have not hit the bottom, and that we see more pain coming in the future, and that we have not hit our all-time low yet, that we will see lower lows. So I think that's an interesting perspective, and it kind of lines up with what I think personally. I think personally we're going to be seeing, in the near future. I think I posted on Twitter today that I think maybe in July at some point we might even see like a $15,000 Bitcoin, maybe even less going forward after that. So we're early in the bear market. We still have a lot of time to go until we should be going back up into the positive. What do you think, Myron?
I think people always talk about like, did we get capitulation yet? And I don't think we got that yet because the sentiment, although it's negative right now, it's not like the end of the world yet. I think
Right.
when you get to the point where people is like, yeah, Bitcoin straight up is a scam, it's going to zero, then maybe you'll get the capitulation. But right now it's also pretty low. Bitcoin's so hard. I was talking to my parents about this, about my mom making some because right now she's kind of getting into like the penny stocks because they've been pumping. But I was like, Mom, like at this price, when markets drop this low, what you should be doing, because her strategy is pretty much buy and hold. I said, what you should be doing is finding the really cheap blue chips to buy, like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, different companies like that, rather than look at these way beat down penny stocks. Because penny stocks you can buy one day will pump 50 or 100 or 200, but the thing is, if you don't sell it at those pops, it's just gonna drop right back down. And for her, I think her mentality is just, I'm just gonna hold it. So right now, it's getting into that range where a lot of these blue chips or these good companies, or even you're talking about crypto related, that's getting to that really, really juicy price. Because who would actually thought that Bitcoin was going to break 20,000, right? Was that historical? Uh, the high of last run was 19,000 or so, right? I think. So people were saying, oh, we're not going to break that. We're not going to break that. Well, the psychological level 20,000 broke and they pushed it down to the 17,000s, like high 17,000s. And I think Gareth himself said if it gets down to the 18,000 range, he's gonna start slowly dollar cost averaging in. But maybe his opinion has changed because his newest video he's calling for a low, like maybe 13, 14,000. But either way, I was telling my mom these assets is getting to that price where you can start buying, and this is level where Bitcoin is tough because one, so far it follows the traditional markets, and two, no one can really call the bottom of any assets. That's if he did call like the exact bottom, that's pretty much all luck. You can only have like kind of a range.
Yeah.
So what the first question is, where is the bottom of Bitcoin? And the second question, like that's hard to answer, is when and if Bitcoin is going to decouple from the stock market, because
Right.
the asset is completely different from the stock market. These risky assets where you call these tech companies and things like that. I think it's supposed. I believe now, the more I look into it, it's supposed to be a commodity, but right now it's not. It's coupled. So there's two huge questions that's I don't think anyone can answer. But given this uncertainty, I think this chart you pulled up is perfect, where you have to just go in and just on probability wise that, hey, historically, whenever I think you explain this chart, it's getting to the fire sale price, and historically, whenever it's in this price, it tends to go up. So right now, maybe it's time to dollar cost average in, or just have a very, very close eye on this.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the price you were looking at. December 2017, the all-time high for that run was 19,345, and we've already dipped below that, which has never happened before. That's never happened before, is where it dipped below the all-time high of the last run. So we're in kind of uncharted territory. But then again, there's macro level things that are affecting Bitcoin. So I did want to bring up this chart because, in my opinion, this has been brought up by David the Foot, and it's a great thing to look at here. But it does show that basically there's a fire sale going on. We're in this range right here where we're getting to a point where, getting Bitcoin at any area in this like dark blue or even under this, because I can see it wicking under this, anything under this, it's going to be a great buying point for Bitcoin. So that's just something to consider. And dollar cost average in. Now, what makes it difficult, like your conversation that you were talking about with your mom, is that when people potentially buy into this stuff, you have to believe in it. If you're going to throw your money at this and you don't understand it, that could be a fool errand. Like, if you're going to invest into this, specifically Bitcoin, make sure you understand it before you quote unquote buy the dip, right? Don't just buy it because it's cheap. Buy it because you understand it and you believe in the project, right? So do your own research and make sure that you understand what it is that you're doing. But relatively speaking and historically speaking, we're entering some really good buying opportunity areas. So with that being said,
Yeah,
what's
and the
affecting the price?
LTA,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say LTA, everything is you're basically looking at the historical data, trying to predict what's to come, or like different patterns that turn to play out. So looking at this chart, right now, because all you're playing is probability, right? So you never want to buy it when it's in the red, where it's like maximum bubble territory, will sell, seriously sell. But I think every single time, if you just follow the historical, and I know Bitcoin is not like the traditional market where it has like decades of historical data, but so far this chart has been working extremely well, and
Yeah,
it is getting to the point where
it's an amazing rainbow.
yeah. So
It's an
it's getting to
amazing
that
picture.
area where if you're thinking about just buying a little bit and just, I think you've been saying this, Draco, that I mean, technically now we have kind of killed the 4 year thing where if you bought the very top of the last run to the 19,000, you were in loss for I guess a day. I think the day it dropped down to the 17,000s was on Saturday. So, but now you're back in profit. So
Right.
you're like a day or two where you're at a loss, but now you're in profit. But really, now I'm thinking about I need to buy, but I never bought Bitcoin before. I'll admit this, and I never moved Bitcoin to a cold wallet before. So I'll probably need your help on that, Draco. Because if I'm buying, I'm moving it to my wallet as soon as I can.
Yes, that's actually a really good point. If you're buying Bitcoin, especially if you're buying whole Bitcoins, like large amounts of Bitcoin, do not keep it on exchanges. Do not keep it in a cold or like in a hot wallet. Make sure you move it onto a cold wallet storage. We can talk to you all about that and help you with that in the Bourbon and Blockchain Discord. Come stop by. But I personally suggest using a high-end, you know, hard wallets such as like a Ledger Nano X, or even if you're looking into something like Grid or Grid Lattice, those are really good high-end hard wallets to utilize. And you should keep your Bitcoin on something like that. There's other options out there, but just do not keep it on an exchange and do not keep it on a hot wallet. You can have all of your stuff get liquidated, and you don't want that. So all of your investing and all of your time and effort would be for nothing if it got taken, right? So you got to protect your crypto at all cost. Um, so what's affecting these prices? Why are these prices going down? So one thing that we wanted to look at was Three Arrows Capital. So if you haven't had time to look and you're here today, we can kind of explain to you really quickly what happened. Three Arrows Capital is a large investment company. They manage billions of dollars, and they're involved in cryptocurrency, and they've gotten involved in multiple sectors of crypto. And first, Three Arrows Capital started taking a loss when Luna went down. So it looks like Three Arrows Capital had over $200 million in Luna, and they lost that. And then going forward, they started to lose more money as Bitcoin started going down. Three Arrows Capital was known as the largest holder of Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and they were also a huge holder of staked Ethereum. And the staked Ethereum was also involved in BlockFi. So because this company started to lose so much money, they were starting to get margin calls, and they weren't able to reach those calls. So this large company is affecting all of these other companies. It also affected a couple exchanges as well. And just to add to this a little bit, BlockFi, which is another company that does loans in crypto, actually liquidated Three Arrows Capital because they were failing to meet their margin calls. So this is having a reverberating effect across crypto, and I think this had a lot to do with some of those large legs downs that we were looking at here at the beginning. When we were looking here on the chart, you'd see these really large drops. I think that a lot of these really large drops are also attributed to this liquidation. So, this is something that's going on in the macro level of crypto, but it's actually happening all over, not just in crypto, but also in other areas of investing.
I think this story of Three Arrows is a great example of, I guess, over leveraging with no risk management. If I can bring something up, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a fund called Archegos Fund. It's headed by Bill Huang. So basically, what this guy did, it was a family fund, and I think it was 200 or 20 million. I think probably 200 million, but he grew it into like billions of dollars, which is the return that's crazy. And basically, what this guy did is he went to different banks and he loaned out a lot of money, and he just pumped stocks. And the stock that he pumped the most back in the day was Viacom, VIAC. Now they changed it to Paramount, PARA.
Yep.
But he pumped this so much where it's so funny reading about it, because the people was like, he's buying it pre-market, So when the market opens, people was like, "Oh, Viacom is up," and he said he's buying throughout the day to keep the price up. Then he was buying towards market close to keep, to close strong basically. And the guy was joking. So basically, he was just buying Viacom all the time, and he had enough money to do this because he's just taking out loans. And the thing is, the way he structured it, the different banks that he went to didn't know what he was holding, and they all thought he was diversified.
Mm,
So Viacom, when he was pumping it, it went up over 100% with no news. And even the CEOs, the executives of the company, they were like, "Wait, why is our stock up like 100%?" So everything was going fine, and this guy made so much money. If he just cashed out, or if he just like stopped it, everything would be fine. He'll be probably one of the greatest returns of all time. But then Viacom, what happens is Viacom came and saw the price, and they said, "Well, we're going to take the advantage of this and do a stock offering." So Viacom dropped hard, and while Viacom was dropping, he took out like all the liquidity he had and tried to keep the price up, but he couldn't do it. And then margin calls start coming in, and now he
mm,
had to sell all this other stock. So that crash from Viacom, a lot of the Chinese stock he held all got hit, and this was just due to one firm. And a lot of banks lost a lot of money through that whole thing, but it was just kind of like they were saying the greed of one man. And same thing with Three Arrows. When the market was doing well, I mean, they're killing it, just like some of these funds out there. But now, when you get this cascade of liquidations or over leveraged, I mean, I'm personally, I'm a person where, I got a little bit greedy, whatever it is. I didn't take the profit and I got hurt by it. But I think the lesson is, at a certain point, you need to manage your risk level and take profits. And this fund is just, I think it was just over leveraged and the risk level was just way too high. And I think I may be wrong on this, but they said at first they made a bunch of money, but then he started taking out like loans on his
yep.
assets. So it was just this one thing where, well, if you get a bad market, there's margin calls come in, and there's nothing you really can do at that point.
Well, we'll give you one more example, and then we'll circle back to what Myron just said. Uh, this is just another quick article that talked about another large company involved in crypto named Celsius. Celsius was another company that was doing loans very similar to BlockFi, and they got liquidated. And then now they're pushing their total liquidation price back to approximately $14,000 for Bitcoin. So what this is saying is that uh, Bitcoin is recovering very well after having all of these things cascade into the market. And then it just kind of speculates on whether or not it's going to continue to do better. Well, the reason why I brought these three up, Binance, Three Arrows Capital, and I'm sorry, BlockFi, Three Arrows Capital, and Celsius, is because there's another article that I wanted to show you guys that says that right now the cryptocurrency downturn is far from over, and he plans on doing a spending spree. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because you can either look at the overall market and say it's too volatile and I don't want to be involved in it. But if you're still here, if you're still watching these videos, you're not done with it. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities. I posted in the Discord about some lower risk opportunities that might be out there for people to research and invest in. Not financial advice, but things that we're just showing historical data. For example, if you were to buy Phantom at this current price and you bought $1,000 worth of it, and hypothetically, if Phantom gets back to its all-time high on the next bull run, we could tell you how much money you would make on that based off of the numbers that are historically there. It's not really, looking at anything that doesn't already exist. We're just putting the numbers together for you. And it looks like even the CEO of Binance is saying, I see opportunities all over the place and I'm taking advantage of it. And the company itself is going on a hiring spree because they know that eventually we're going to come out of this and be stronger on the backside of it. But how do we get there, right? Like, how are we going to make sure that we get to this point where there's going to be buying opportunities? And right here, they're talking about the FTX president, Brett Harrison, is talking about how one of the best things that can happen to the market is to have more. Look at right here. We're going to be looking for more asset clarity and regulation. We've been talking about that for months here on Bourbon-n-Blockchain, that regulation is what's going to push all of this asset class into the next level. And I think that a lot of big names in crypto are starting to get on board with that. Yeah, decentralization is good. Yeah, anonymity is good. There's a time and a place for a lot of those things. But ultimately, without regulation, we're going to keep finding these big bad things that we're going to fall into. For example, over leveraged companies that are buying into crypto through crypto, companies that are doing loans and things like that, without having regulation so that we all understand what is going on behind the scenes and that these companies are going to be held accountable. There will be no, full on bore all of the people in big large institutions getting into cryptocurrency. They're not going to do it because there's not enough rules to protect them. And I think that this is what's going to push everything forward. And it looks like even the huge exchanges are starting to realize that.
One crazy thing I guess kind of related to this. One crazy theory that I heard that could happen with Bitcoin, I guess assets in general, is during the 1930s, U.S. had that gold confiscation. Basically, they told you to hand in all your gold, and they paid you around $20 an ounce, which is like 400 something dollars now, which is crazy cheap. what they bought it for from you from. So so what happens is, as soon as that ended, they bought it for $20 and they raised this. And they say, okay, now every single ounce of gold is $30. So that's like $50, 50% increase. And so that essentially that repriced everything to increase by 50%. And what that guy was saying is that the US debt to GDP ratio right now is way too high. It's way too high of level to where just increasing the interest rates or anything like that is really dangerous, because if your debt to GDP ratio is extremely high, back in the 70s they increased the interest rate to like 20% or so, where it really crashed the market. But now, like, since the ratio is high, if you increase to like 7 to 8%, that's going to have a drastically higher impact than 7 to 8% back in the days. So he said the only way to lower this, U.S. is not going to have surplus in spending. So we're not pretty much not going to raise the debt level. So the only way to raise it is up the GDP level. So there's two ways to raise the GDP level. One is by increasing the production of goods, which is kind of hard to achieve. The other one is you can reprice everything, where everything that costs $100 now costs $150, which increases GDP and lowers the debt to GDP ratio. So he said if the Fed does go that route, which they do have the option to go that route, but it's an extreme route to take. When they do that, essentially all assets, especially Bitcoin, is just going overnight, just going to go to a crazy level. And if they do that, so this is a thing where you won't be able to time it. You won't be able to like get in once it's announced. It's just going to happen. So he said that's one scenario where he's still super bullish on it, where his plan again is to hold it forever. So that could be another thing where you could start thinking about buying the Bitcoin. And at that time, if they do that, everyone that's holding cash is pretty much, they just took away your wealth drastically.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point, and I think that Bitcoin specifically is one of those assets that you want to purchase and hold on to long term. I keep trying to tell people purchasing Bitcoin is like a 4-year investment. It's something that you don't just buy and try to sell right away, because yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. You can imagine that all of these institutions, all of these large companies, all of these corporate agencies, they're going to find out if there's a Bitcoin ETF on the horizon way before we do. They're going to find out if Bitcoin regulations getting ready to be approved through Congress way before we do. And they're going to be putting their money in. And if they find out about that before we do, which they are going to, you're not going to be able to catch up to the price. You're never going to be able to time it before they know about it. So you're hedging that you're going to find out before they do. And if you're doing that, you're in a losing battle, because in history, whether it's stocks or anything else, the retail investor always loses. So don't bet on winning that fight. You're not going to win. The last thing that I wanted to talk about tonight before we let you guys go is one of my favorite blockchains, Solana. Oh man, it's such a good blockchain. So Solana, if you guys haven't heard, they have a lending protocol called Solend, and it's based on the Solana blockchain. And they passed a governance proposal that invalidates controversial emergency powers, so that they can take away voting rights from one person so that they can avoid, I guess what they called it was like tragic events, right? So they have what's called, it's almost like a DAO where people can vote and they can choose what direction a blockchain or the lending protocol goes. And instead of actually adhering to the votes, so there was 1,480,000 votes voting yes and 3,500 votes voting no, during this proposal. Well, people didn't like that one person had control over 1 million plus votes, and because of that, they've decided that they're just going to kind of destroy it. They're going to take the voting power away from that person. I think that that's wrong. I think that that's the opposite of what crypto was created for. They're going against their own rules that they've created. And they're saying that they need to act swiftly to address the systemic risk and the fact that their normal users can't withdraw their USDC. Um, well, if they created this problem and it's part of their rules, now they're breaking their own rules to fix it. I think this is just another huge black eye on on Solana. I think that not only having it going down 6 times within the past few months, and that the blockchain has failed and they've had to pause it several times, that this is just another big black eye for them. I don't think Solana is a very good blockchain in my personal opinion. I don't like the way they operate, and you can see here that they're gonna pull whatever levers and make whatever adjustments they have to make them comfortable. And we talked earlier about something like Bitcoin, where Bitcoin can't do that. There is no arbiter behind Bitcoin that can pull a lever and make a change. There are no huge upgrades that are coming. It's not going to get increasingly more difficult as a blockchain from where it is today. We're not waiting for Bitcoin 2.5 to get better. None of that stuff's happening. It just is what it is, and it runs on its own. Where you have these people that are increasingly interested in what Sol is doing and how it operates for financial good, to make them richer. And they're going to make these decisions to make themselves look better and to make them more money. And I think that that's going to be the biggest problem. That's going to be the biggest thorn in the side of a project such as Solana.
Hey man, the guy should the whale should have all those votes if he voted in accordance to what the people wanted. But since he's going against it, he should be taking away his voting rights, right?
Right.
If you agree with us, you should have free speech. But if you don't, you shouldn't have free speech, man.
Yeah. Now, if they would have taken instead of a weighted by, let's say this person has X amount of shares, right? Now, if they would say, okay, per shareholder, we'll do another vote. And instead of being weighted by shares, it's shareholder, and they did a vote and they wanted to make changes, then I could respect it. But that's not what they're doing. They're just hitting the admin button and making changes behind the scenes, like they're pulling up like DOS and they're making changes in the background. And you can't do that. That's not in the goodness of everybody. That's not free will. That's not following the rules that they agreed upon when they made this. And by doing that, they're making their project more weaker. They're showing you that they're literally showing you as an investor that they can just hit the pause button and do whatever they want whenever they want.
I'm just making fun of like our current situation, like how Twitter was before too. It's like, if you agree with us, you can post, but if not, you're gonna be banned.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with you. I just think that this is poor judgment on their part, and people notice right away. Like, if you didn't think that all these people that were involved in cryptocurrency were going to notice what you're doing and how it's wrong and what the backlash could potentially be from that, they're not even looking at any of that. They just don't care. So I don't know. I just think that this is just another. I think this is just another, huge blemish on this project, going forward. I don't know how it's surviving, to be honest with you. Apparently, there's a lot of money behind Solana, a lot of venture capitalist money. But to be honest with you, I just don't know how it's surviving. If you were looking at other blockchains and comparing them, for all these different reasons, Solana's way at the bottom. Like AVAX is 10 times better. Polygon is a million times better than Solana. I just don't know how it's even a conversation piece at this point.
Yeah. And the one thing I do want to mention with Bitcoin and all these other assets is when Bitcoin goes, let's say, for example, Bitcoin goes from 20K or whatever it is, when Bitcoin gets up to $100,000, where it's only like a 5x, right? But during that time, there's going to be multiple projects or these altcoins that's going to have a 10x, 20x, 50x, or 100x. The problem is you don't know which one's going to do that. And we know we have the top ones right now, AVAX, Polygon, Phantom, I guess even Sol, all these ones. But the thing is, not necessarily those ones will go up because the last bull run, a lot of those coins never went up to all-time highs. So, but with Bitcoin, you know it's going to survive. With the altcoins, you can have some crazy wins, but you don't know which one's going to be. Could it be one that hasn't even come out yet? And
Yeah,
that's the
and
risk to take.
yeah, and I agree with you. One of the questions that we had from the audience, Christine said, "Why are projects doing this lately? Where they just make a decision and boom, you just have to deal with it." I think the answer is twofold. Number one, everybody's convinced that proof of stake is better than proof of work, based off of some nonsense information that people put out early in 2021. And they were trying to FUD proof of work, saying that wasn't energy efficient and all this other stuff. But at the same time, it also gave a lot more power to the developers in proof of stake. It allows them to pull the strings a little bit differently because now there's not as much money tied up in their project. A lot of people don't understand that part of the reason why Bitcoin is so expensive is because A, the amount of money it costs to create Bitcoin, and B, all of the money that's locked up in the miners, in the companies, and the people that are employed by all of these huge mining facilities that are all over the world. That's part of what backs the dollar of Bitcoin, right? The value of Bitcoin. With something like Solana, it's all backed by money that's invested into it, and all of the code and all of the rules can be changed at any moment by the developers. And I think that we won't get past this, and something that will actually surpass Ethereum one day is a completely decentralized, trustless, completely hands off, no developers layer two, or a layer one blockchain that has nobody at the helm. There's nobody running it. It all runs off of the actual community, and you develop something that works out the gate and you just let it run. And if it's imperfect over time, you make changes slowly, one proposal at a time, based on the amount of people that are involved in the project. There is no CEO, there are no employees. You just let it go. And Bitcoin is the only one that does that, and it happens to be one of the most solid projects out there. Again, everybody's watching Bitcoin during these times of turmoil because it's the only thing that's keeping the market alive. Everything follows Bitcoin at this point.
You essentially have to ask yourself, the people, they say follow the money and who benefits. Going to a proof of stake, who do you think it benefits the proof of stake? It's
Right.
going to benefit the whales, the people who can control a large amount of tokens, right, or coins. And essentially, it makes it less decentralized by going
Right.
to proof of stake. And a lot of these, even DeFi projects, where it's supposed to be decentralized finance, a lot of these projects are very, very centralized. There's one that's super funny. I forgot which project it was. The guy basically, the dev basically sold a bunch of tokens and says, "Oh, guys, sorry, I had to sell tokens to pay the salaries." It's like, well, dude, like you can't do that in a decentralized system. Like nobody, nothing. You just make a decision. I mean, that's not DeFi, man. It's just
Right.
you running this, saying it's DeFi when it's like you, the dev, pretty much has control of everything. And I think that's the problem right now, where it's like people say it's crypto, or we're thinking, like, for us when we're thinking about crypto, it's decentralized. But a lot of these is we're moving towards a centralized, I think, crypto. And there's a reason, because these people, they have the media behind them, they have the power to spread this information, and they have the power, I guess, to brainwash people. And that's when people are saying, "Oh, proof of stake is better. Proof of stake is better." Like, are you sure that it's completely better than proof of work, or are you just being brainwashed
Exactly.
for their own benefit?
Right. There was a narrative that was created, and that narrative was pushed hard, and now people think that, well, that's the popular thing, so that's got to be correct. That doesn't make it right. And on top of that, just to reiterate what you were saying, look at Luna. Luna's a great example. Luna had people at the top of the helm. They made poor decisions. They were getting cocky. They were making fun of people that had less money than them. They were making bold statements about their project, and then it went to shit. And part of the reason why it did is because they were over leveraged on things and they were making bad decisions in the background. Those are part of the problems. So far, what we're seeing in a lot of these projects and a lot of these companies that are failing is the human element. Allowing these people to have all of this power and greed is causing these projects to fail. And right now, one of the only projects I'm aware of that doesn't have those issues is Bitcoin. There's nobody in the driver's seat that can tank the project. It is a completely decentralized project that's spread out all across the world, backed by hundreds of thousands of computers that solidify the network. It's one of the most secure networks in the world that has ever been created, that happens to be run on monetary policy.
Mm.
So it's something to think about. I mean, I've always been into Bitcoin. I've gotten more and more into Bitcoin. And recently, after this crash, I feel like just Bitcoin continues to become an issue. And it can be said that it's one of the most perfect currencies that's ever been created. And I got to continue to follow it. It's definitely piqued my interest.
I think definitely in terms of like a portfolio allocation perspective, Bitcoin should be the majority of your portfolio. I'm not saying that it has to be like over 50%, but it should be the biggest holding, whatever
Correct.
you determine that to be, right? If you're like, oh, 30% Bitcoin, 20%, I'm gonna do like 20% state, whatever it is, like you shouldn't have an altcoin that's a higher allocation than Bitcoin because that's extremely risky at that point when you play it that way. Of
I
course, you
agree.
can get lucky and you can pick the perfect altcoin that goes, 10, 50, 100x once we get into the bull cycle again, or you can get unlucky and that old coin just dies. So whatever your allocation, I think this is a very important thing to think about. And I think it's time, I have done definitely talking to you, Draco, and just how the market in general became more and more like Bitcoin more and more. Back in the day, man, like why would I? Because my mindset is this: why would I buy Bitcoin? Even if it goes to 100,000, it's only like 2, 3x back in the days, right? And now we can say it's only 5x. But that type of thinking is wrong, I think,
I
because
agree.
then you're trying to do like the moon boy and the moon shots and stuff like that. Well, that's essentially
You cut out a little bit, but the Moon Boys and the Moonshots, especially like when it came to DeFi summer for last year, that's what got everybody wrecked. That's what got everybody in trouble. The promises of 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000% APY returns, that's where people were losing all of their money. And I think that we need to take a more mature approach to crypto and investing, and thinking that that's the best way to make your money. Now, yeah, there is an opportunity there, but it's gambling. I mean, you're literally playing craps at that point, or playing roulette. You're just throwing the ball on the table and hoping that you hit it right so that you make money. And I don't think that that's a great way to invest. And there's got to be a better way. And I think that we're, over time, we're maturing and finding better things to invest in. Well, it sounds like Myron, did you get your mic fixed?
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I was just gonna mention one more thing. Yeah, my internet was going out. I was gonna mention one more thing for all the projects that you have. You're paying out more than what you're taking in, which is what Luna did, Celsius did. Long term, is not going to work out.
Nope.
So you just have to. And then now I think now we have this lesson learned. You just really have to. I mean, they can survive in the short term. They can do really well in the short term, but if that consistently becomes a problem for them, that just means the more people, because they can, the argument for them is, well, we're doing this for marketing, we're bringing more people. Well, but the thing is, when you're paying out more than what you're taking in, the more people you have just means you have to pay out that much more. It doesn't help, right?
It's a
If every
failing business model.
exactly, if every customer you bring in, you lose $2, the more customer you bring in, the more dollars you lose. But if they
Exactly.
can find a way where they get more customers and somehow, like, to bring it to scale, like these big factories and stuff like that, they say, well, if we have more customer, we can get bigger, better contracts and things like that. Eventually, we'll be net positive. Well, that's fine. But for these projects, it doesn't seem to be that way, where they don't really have a way where you get more people and somehow you're gonna make uh, green profit.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's one thing that we can all start to agree on is that Bitcoin is something to be admired and something to be maybe even something to be built upon, maybe something to maybe not just build another layer on top of it, but maybe even to create something similar to it, because right now it seems to be one of the only things that are functioning properly. But I don't know. It's, what do you guys think? Give us some comments. Throw some comments on the video or come into the Discord and let's talk about it a little bit more. But either way, this is all we got for you guys tonight. We just wanted to make a nice quick video, some updates on what's going on in the market. Join the Discord. There's a link in the description. We'd love to continue the conversation. And if you have other ideas or thoughts or investments that you want to discuss, bring it along and bring it into the Discord and we can discuss it. Anything else, Myron?
No, that's all.
All right. Well, everybody, you guys have a great week. It's Monday. We've only got a couple more days till hump day, and then we're on the downward slope till Friday and make it towards the weekend. So enjoy your week, and, pay attention to the market. Don't let it, bum you out. Get out and do some extracurricular activity and make sure you spend some time with your friends and loved ones. Other than that, have a great week and have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.